Hi everyone, this is Dr. Yashashwini presenting here to you how to write a research paper. Every researcher thinks how to write a research paper. Now, writing research paper is not a rocket science, but yes, it's easy. But once we understand all the steps. First one, research problem formulation. Under research problem formulation, a researcher needs to choose the area of interest, his or her area of interest. The moment you choose the area of your interest of the subject or the topic or a matter, you need to formulate the problem. How? Write down the concise information about that particular problem and formulate the objectives for the same. Now remember this, your title should match with your problem formulation and your problem formulation should match with your objectives. Now this is how research problem formulation works. Giving you an example, traffic in Bangalore, air pollution in Bangalore, metro projects which are running in case causing the environmental problems. So write a paragraph about it as a problem formulation and then jot down the objectives. This is how research problem formulation is being done. The second step is extensive literature survey. Under literature survey, it's about we are referring various sources of articles, books with the help of websites, various source of information. It could be by the help of newspaper, anything as such. But here when it comes to research in concise, there are two forms. One is conceptual review of literature. Second one is empirical review of literature. Under conceptual review of literature, remember, as a researcher is using the concepts, Maslow's hierarchy theory, consumer decision making process. This is conceptual review of literature. Second form is basically empirical review of literature, in which a researcher is trying to prove with the help of concepts using the collection of data and analyzing the data, finally coming out with the results and conclusions. Fine. So there are two different types of review of literature survey. The next step is developing the hypothesis. Now, if you are wondering what is hypothesis, let me make it clear to you. Hypothesis is a tentative statement which has to be proven by further investigation. Like for an example, every student in the class is keenly listening in my class. They might or they might not. Now this hypothesis has to be proven with an appropriate data collection. So as a researcher needs to have a thorough knowledge how to develop an hypothesis. There are various forms of hypothesis, null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, causal hypothesis, a lot of hypotheses. Now it is important for the researcher to choose the right hypothesis for the research which is being formulated. And the next step is preparing the research design. Now, remember this research design is like a blueprint that the way you're conducting the research. The moment we see the blueprint of the research, we need to understand how exactly a researcher is going, which direction a researcher is moving through. This is how preparing the research design works. Research design should be extensive in nature and it should have alternatives when there is a collection of data goes wrong or anything goes wrong. There should be a different assumptions to make sure that finally the result should be directed towards the problem formulation. So this is all about preparing the research design. The next step is determining the sample design. What is sample? How can we understand and take the sample out of population? Let me give you first information about population and then the sample. Now, population is a larger area. Let's take for an example the smartphone users in Bangalore. Probably there are crores of people who are there in Bangalore. But again, when it comes to population, we need to pick up those smartphone users exactly from Bangalore. Let's take for an example, there are 80 lakh smartphone users in Bangalore. In that 80 lakh, you're supposed to choose those samples. It means drawing the items from the population, which in turn will represent the whole population. So yes, it could be a smaller part of the whole population, making sure that these samples will always represent the population. There are various ways of sample design. The next video I would be sharing you the types of sample design, but right now this is all about steps of research and how to write a research paper. Now, the next step is all about collecting the data. How do we collect the data? There are two ways of collecting the data. First one is primary data, second one is secondary data. First, primary data source of collection is all about first-hand information. It's like you conduct an interview with the help of questionnaires. The questionnaires can be structured or unstructured. And you get the first-hand information right from your samples. Now, the second form of collecting the data, which is secondary source of data collection, that is basically when it comes to newspaper, websites, which is already being collected by someone else, and you are using it as a base for your collection of data. Now, various sources, books, websites, articles, journals, newspapers, all of these are collecting the data. The next step is analyzing the data. When we collect the data, we cannot predict that every data is right. You will have to code the data, and then you'll have to analyze the data. You'll have to edit the data, format the data to make sure that your data being collected is precisely matching with your title and your problem formulation and your objectives. In turn, analyzing the data will also help you to give an appropriate result at the end. The next step is hypothesis testing. After we collect the data, it's important for all of us to use an appropriate statistical tool. Now, hypothesis is students listening in the class. Students are not listening in the class. Now, how do I test this hypothesis, which is a tentative statement? Now, from the population of the student, I draw the samples. I might ask set number of questions, and those students are going to tell me, are they listening keenly in the class? Are they not listening keenly in the class? Now, how do I prove that? After data collection, I need to use an appropriate statistical tool. With the help of statistical tool, I'll be able to prove the hypothesis. Is my hypothesis accepted? Is my hypothesis rejected? It is purely based on samples information. The next step is generalization and interpretation. Every data collected, analyzed, and with the help of statistical tools, we draw few interpretations. Now, these interpretations are such which is completely factual in nature because it completely analyzes the data. And then we need to interpret so and so happened, so and so reason. So and so happened, so and so reason. It's merely cause effect relationship. So this is about generalization and interpretation of the data. The next step is final step. Remember this, you need to prepare the report. Preparing the report, again, there are few steps which I'll be showing in the next video. So preparation of report has its own format, and then we need to put our results and form the conclusions at the end. So this becomes the final process of your report writing, which in turn, how to write a research paper. Thank you so much for patiently listening to me. Have a nice day.